If you were in the 1980s and you had to visit a warehouse, there's a good chance it would not have been a pleasurable experience. Warehouses were those dark, dirty spaces where goods were stacked on top of one another. It was clumsy, it was claustrophobic, and there would be these all kinds of characters who are moving around and trying to pick up trays and find the goods that they need to be stocked or dispatched. There was dust everywhere, it was unhealthy, and the long list can go on. But this story about warehouses today is completely different. If one area in supply chain has changed or metamorphosed into something very beautiful, very exciting, it's warehouses. Today's warehouses are very different. They are a hub of technology, they are a hub of smart people, they are a hub of synchronized movement, something like a dance. And to somebody who's seen warehouses over all these years, this is truly a very massive and substantial and a happy change. In these series of videos, I am going to take you through a series of sessions on concepts and trying to make sense of this happy change that we have had in warehouses so that we can use warehouses to maximize our supply chain impact. To start, let me start with this idea that efficient supply chains are virtually impossible without warehouses. So, for example, we may imagine that I have a manufacturer at one location and a consumer at one location. And as soon as the consumer runs out of the material, the manufacturer magically finds about that the consumer has run out of material. And then the manufacturer can magically, using a drone, dispatch that individual product to the consumer, and the consumer lives happily ever after. Well, this story is very romantic, if I have to say it. But beyond that, it's not possible because creating these individual deliveries from manufacturers to consumers would become very expensive in terms of transportation cost. So, manufacturers have to be centralized to some extent because centralization allows them to produce goods at lower cost because they're larger factories, centralized, they can produce goods cheaper. But the moment you centralize goods, their distance, average distance from the consumers increases. And because their average distance from the consumers increases, it becomes difficult to do individual single item level deliveries to consumers. And that's where, among other reasons, that warehouses come in. So, warehouses per se standard do three different tasks. The task one, which is their considered to be their basic task, is storage. So we'll look into this in the future videos that the storage function helps match demand and supply. So sometimes you have um, seasonal supply like fruits, but uniform demand. Well, warehouses help manage that demand and supply. In some other cases, we could have seasonal demand. So, for example, things sold during Christmas, Diwali, or Ramadan, and the supply could in fact be more uniform. So, warehouses helps balance that. So, we'll get into that. But on average, also, it helps store things so that there is the demand and the supply are buffered and they are not directly connected. So that's the idea of the storage function. The second important thing that warehouses do these days is this idea of distribution. Now, because I have a warehouse, I can actually collect everything at one location and then redistribute it to all other locations depending on the requirement from those destinations. I am not constrained to directly connect a manufacturer to the retailer, or there's no direct necessity for a direct linkage. So this distribution task is a very important task that warehouses of today talk about. We'll see this in detail in the next few videos. And the third and the very important task that warehouses of today do is this idea of services. Now, for example, one of the services that they do is accepting returns for reverse logistics. So when we send returns, generally those returns don't go directly to the manufacturers. They go to some warehouses. So those warehouses would sort the returns into different categories. Well, is this return because the consumer didn't like it? And maybe then it's still brand new and we could use it again. Or maybe there's some problem, it needs to be corrected, and then we could sell it in a different market as a used or refurbished product. or it needs to be scrapped. So this decision to a good extent needs to be done at the warehouse. And because it's done at the warehouse, you don't need to transport the goods all the way back to the factory. You can have a short transport to the warehouse, decide, and then accordingly redirect the goods to the relevant location. Another services that warehouses today offer is repairs. So sometimes when we send goods for electronic repairs, they don't go to the manufacturers. They go to a warehouse which have dedicated spaces for repairing. Warehouses offer multiple services like kitting also. So for example, if I order a desktop computer which consists of a monitor, a keyboard, and a mouse, and of course the computer, in many cases they would arrive differently at a local warehouse from different locations, and the warehouse would kit it into a component or a complete SKU and send that component ready to me as a desktop buyer. So there are a list of long services that warehouses offer. Now, what has happened is over the years is that the configuration of what a warehouse does has substantially changed. Long time ago, when we were talking about the dark ages of the warehouses are primarily aims of storage. And that's why the value they added was not very great, and that's why the investment they had was very little. So warehouses' primary aim was storage. But this has changed substantially over the years, and where sometimes we moved from being merely a storage to a warehousing to a distribution kind of arrangement. And in fact, that is where warehouses got the new name called distribution centers. So the idea why we call it is because distribution became a bigger aim of warehouses. Again, it's relative, it's bigger, but the focus of distribution as a purpose of warehouse increased as compared to the focus on storage. And what has happened recently is this idea of services has certainly taken a boost. So warehouses are no longer just a place where goods come, stored, and redistributed. No, things are done at the warehouse. Things are kitted together. You do some kind of packaging at a warehouse. Some pack inserts in pharmaceutical industries or some situations could be inserted during warehousing. So the nature of the task has completely or radically changed in the warehousing, and because of this change of nature of the task, we have what we could call as a completely new type of warehouses which are available today. To help you make sense of what we just said, let me introduce a couple of numbers. So in 1950s, warehouses used to be very small, and the average size of warehouse was less than 20,000 square feet. um, Understandable, right? Because it's storage, warehouses are distributed all over the country. We did not have they were not value adding, so they were not increased in space. We did not have the ability or the software and the technology needed to, everything was manual, so we did not have the ability to manage larger warehouses in that era. But over time, warehouses have increased, and today it is not uncommon to find warehouses of the order of 150,000 square feet. Now, just to give you a context, the football field can be anywhere between 60,000, 70,000, 75,000 square feet. Or so when we talk about 60,000 square feet warehouse and we talk of 100 football field, 60,000 square feet football field, and we talk of 150,000 square feet of warehouse, what I'm essentially talking of, on an average, a warehouse could be anywhere between, at approximately 2.5 times of a football field. And this is what I'm talking about, average warehouses. The larger warehouses could be twice this number. So the space has increased, and the space increased has pushed so many requirements. So the warehouses now need to have some kind of automated material handling, or some kind of at least mechanized material handling. It needs substantial software support. Warehouse management systems are it's impossible to run a warehouse without warehouse management systems. Something else, another metric that I want to introduce you here is this idea of RFID technology. In the olden days, RFID technology was very expensive. Even when we look at passive tags, the passive tags were also very expensive. So what has happened is very few warehouses would use such technology tools because they're primarily expensive. So what has happened over the years, as of now, passive and very basic passive tags, I think, could be obtained for as low as 5 cents. So when tags can be obtained for as low as 5 cents each, the use suddenly explodes. And all these technology tools, which were out of access or only accessible to high end supply chains, are suddenly now accessible to every individual warehouse. So it has become very common now to see warehouses with handheld scanners, barcodes, RFIDs, and all these technology tools which were previously exclusive to some elite group. The availability of all this substantial piece of technology and all these massive automated toys has done is that it has increased the cost of operating a warehouse substantially. So the range of cost, when I look at per square feet cost in the United States for running a warehouse, it can vary between a basic warehouse would probably do between $30 per square feet to maybe $100 per square feet. These are very basic warehouses which have very little, everything is managed manually, very little software support. But when you look at e-commerce warehouses and the automated warehouses that we are talking of today, we are talking of the cost of in the range of 200 to $300 per square feet minimum. These are the capital cost of setting up a warehouse. Now, just to note here, do your own calculations. We are talking of warehouses of around the order of 200,000 square feet, and we are talking the cost in the order of $300 to $500 per square feet. So do your own math. And what this has done is it has elevated the status of a warehouse because it has contributes tremendous value, and because also it has a tremendous capital cost impact. Warehouses are no longer those dingy areas, or those dirty closed areas which were hidden away somewhere in the supply chain. Warehouses are the prominent parts of supply chain, and it is would not be an exaggeration to say that warehouses are what make supply chains the supply chains of today.